So, good day guys. We will discuss today about the contemporary global governance with integration of COVID-19. By the way, I am Cadet Vincent Ygoña. And for your information, this is for educational use only. Our group is allowing our instructor, Mr. Roldan Ardines, to use this as an educational material. So first is we have our learning objectives. Our learning objectives, at the end of the class, we may able to know the meaning and definition and explanation of the global governance. Two, different challenges of global governance amid to COVID-19 pandemic and how they solve it. Enumerate the importance of global governance, and lastly, differentiate the internationalism and globalism. So what is global governance, by the way? The global governance refers to the institution that coordinates the behavior of transnational actors. So the example of it is WHO, or the World Health Organization, policies on health issues in 2015. So there are 5 types of global governance. First is the architecture of the world order. 2, the role of the state in international relationship. 3 is the role of agency beyond the state. 4 is adaptiveness, accountability, and legitimacy of global governance. And 5 is the distribution of power. So the global governance, the goal of the global governance, roughly defined, is to provide global public goods, particularly peace and security, justice, and mediation system for conflict. Global governance encompasses activities that transcend national boundaries at the international, national, and regional levels, and based on the rights and rules that are enforced through a combination of economic and moral incentiveness. Thus, global governance is thought to be an international process of consensus forming which generates guidelines and agreements that affect national governments and international corporations. So that's it, guys. Thank you. So the pandemic, or the COVID-19, has changed the way of life of citizens around the world. In this short time, affecting all areas of society, directly or indirectly, which is facing a global health crisis in this world. So, and national responses implemented by governments several months into the pandemic. The first after effects of COVID-19 are beginning to be felt by citizens who are questioning the management carried out so far. In order to improve the performance of governmental decisions to reduce the impact of the pandemic during the coming months, we calculated the levels of efficiency in the management of health resources. In addition, we identify some country characteristics that may condition efficient management. So for our conclusion, these results provide an opportunity for political leaders to reflect on their management during these months, like mayor and vice mayor, or whatever political may be during the pandemic, in order for them to identify the mistakes and improve the implementations of effective measures. It has been shown that using more resources does not mean managing better. Therefore, policymakers need to pay special attention to the use of resources, taking into account budgetary constraints of the public sectors. Thank you.
I am Cadet Angelo Aliboso. So, what is realism? Realism is a theory that claims to explain the reality of international politics. Its emphasis that constrains on politics that result from humankind egoistic nature and the absence of a central authority above the states. For realists, the highest goal is the survival of the states. The dominance of realism has generated a significant stance or literature criticizing its maintenance. However, despite the value of criticisms, which will be explored in the rest of his book, realism continues to provide valuable insights and remains an important analytical tool for every student of international relations. So, there are 4 types of realism. First is state-centrism. These are realists view sovereign nation-state as the only legitimate monopolies over this use of force to our focuses solely state behaviors. First is anarchy is a society being freely constituted without authorities or governing body. It may also refer to society or group of people that entirely rejects a set hierarchy. Next is egoism. Is inherently egoistic and self-interested to the extent the self-interest overcome moral principles. And lastly is power politics. Is a theoretical of political philosophy that attempts to explain or model and prescribe political relation. It can be taken as assumptions that power is primary end of political actions. So here are the example of realisms. Is representations of how these are being practical and facing facts. And realism is the rejections of mythical beings, the representations in our literatures of objects, actions, or social conditions as they actually are without idealizations or presentation in abstract form.
In globalized world, liberalism assumes that international relations involve peaceful interactions among actors and global issues can be settled by the means of global cooperation and joint effort. So what is liberalism? Liberalism is a political philosophy based on liberty and equality before the law. This has been dominant political ideology that has defined the modern era. Liberals believe that international institutions play a key role in cooperation among states via interdependence. There are three main components of interdependence. States interact in various ways through economic, financial, and cultural means. Security tends to not be the primary goal in state-to-state interactions, and military forces are not typically used. Although most liberals would claim that government is necessary to protect rights, different forms of liberalism may propose very different policies. Liberalism believes that society should be organized in accordance with certain unchangeable and inviolable human rights, especially the rights to life, liberty, and property. It also holds that traditions do not carry in any inherent value, that social practices ought to be continuously adjusted for the greater benefit of humanity, and that there should be no foundational assumption that take precedence over other aspects of government. Some examples of liberalisms are democracy. Liberalism supports a strong form of democracy where all people can vote and participate in the political process. This is based on freedom of speech and other freedoms such as freedom of press and freedom of association. Second is the equality before the law. Equal political and legal rights for all people. Liberalism is consistent with equality of opportunity whereby all people are treated the same by the systems of society. Next is the free trade. Liberalism is consistent with globalism and the freedom to interact with people, communicate, and engage in commerce at the global level. It is consistent with international agreements that take away democratic rights and shift power to private interest. Propositions of liberalism. Cooperation among nation-states is essential for a peaceful international system. World politics struggle for consensus and mutual benefits rather than struggle for power. Conflict reduction practices and norms used in any state can also be used when dealing with international disputes. Criticisms in liberalism. Democratic states may slide back to another form of non-democratic and authoritarian forms. States can cooperate among themselves on the basis of their own decisions, self-national interest. Free trade and interdependence may not ensure cooperation as claimed by them.
Good day everyone, I am Clint Rosenas. I am here to continue the theory of global governance, where is constructivism. So if we talk about constructivism, it is a social theory that asserts that significant aspects of international relations are shaped by additional factors which are historically and socially constructed, not simply material factors. It is a theory that says learners construct knowledge rather than just passively take in information. So constructivism have key tenets. So here it is. The international system is a set of ideas, thoughts, and beliefs arranged by people in the past. Social world is a world of human consciousness that is thought beliefs, ideas, and understanding among human and groups of human beings. Therefore, this influences world politics. Constructivists view that national identity, national interest, and behavior of actors, such as individuals and states, are socially defined and socially constructed. State functions in social environment because society gives meaning to many core concepts such as anarchy, power, national interest, and security dilemma. Sovereignty of states is the most important institution in the international society. Constructivists view state sovereignty as a changing phenomenon. Global institutions are the norm setters and creators. They socialize states to accept norms, values, and beliefs in the international system. Thus, they serve as an agent of social construction which has independent effect on international relations. It also holds that actors offer than state matters in the world affairs. However, they are influenced by who they are and how they perceive themselves and others. So, constructivism in general focuses on three key ideas, whereas interest, identities, and norms. Constructivism has also limitation. Constructivists are good at describing change in ideas, thoughts, and shared beliefs, and lead to change in the world politics and international system, but they are weak on explaining the cause of change that lead to change in ideas and share understanding how, when, and why those such changes emerge. It is also argued that it is an approach, not a theory of international relations, because it could not deal with real and serious matters of international relations. For example, the theory of culture cannot explain and replace the theory of politics. That's all, and thank you.
So good day everyone, I am Cadet Matthew Galolo. At this point, we will be discussing about the challenges and approaches of the global governance of public health under COVID-19. At the beginning of 21st century, there is widespread recognition that national and international health are inseparable. The COVID-19 in particular spread to many countries in less than a month. The full extent of its impact on global economy, governance, structures, and livelihood of persons is unprecedented and huge but not fully known. These international public health events have left human efforts to control them in more uncertainty and difficulties. Governance challenges for global health have long fascinated legal scholars and political scientists. With the recent COVID-19 outbreak, it is high time to re-examine the current landscape of international health cooperation, which is underpinned by various legal norms, processes, and institutions. The outbreak of COVID-19 will again test the effectiveness of IHR specifically, and the moral and legal legitimacy of the WHO as a global health agency more broadly. It has placed the issue of international public health governance once again into the focus of the international community. At present, the main task of WHO and the states' governments is still to deal with the COVID-19, trying every means to control the epidemic and mitigate its harms. We do need to think locally and act locally, but we also need to think and act globally. And ideas of global caring, global compassion, strong international institutions are really important. COVID-19 has challenged the sufficiency of even these significant global efforts, and the subsequent huge impacts impose new challenges to the global governance of international public health. So, here is the challenges and how the global governance of public health and the government approaches it.
Hello guys, I am the Cadet Ynoy Loui Jay, and today I'm going to discuss some of the challenges of global governance during COVID-19. Number 1. Limited functions of international organizations and difficulties in achieving objectives. The World Bank and International Monetary Fund ushered in an era of user fees for health services and structural management adjustment that diminished national health budgets, and laissez-faire capitalism give carte blanche for international corporations to move to low-tax, low-regulation states, thus depleting domestic resources for health and failing to regulate corporate marketing products, workplace safety, and environmental impacts that harm the public's health and safety. Number 2. Poor collaboration between governance subjects and limited performance. Most states are faced with differences in economic and medical development between different regions, which results in varying ability to respond to PHEIC in different parts of that state. For the states short of a strong central government, in the middle of the regulation, it is easy to the different areas of that state to respond to a crisis in a coordinated manner. Number 3. Overlapping legal basis of governance and blurred core function. When the progress of globalizations come to a halt, governments are finding their commitment to free trade no longer the first priority, although it has become the consensus of international organizations and regions to strengthen international cooperation in addressing global health issues. Unified coordination is still insufficient on how to regulate and guarantee international corporations. 4. Lack of solutions to special problems. COVID-19 has many special problems which have been unknown because of its sudden and comprehensive nature. Concerns over potential erosion in democracy and respect among broader worries over worldwide democratic backsliding in recent years. Therefore, the extent of which COVID-19 related restrictions represent a departure from past governance patterns also may vary between states. That's all. Thank you.
Good day, sir. Good day, everyone. I am Deck Cadet Rubis, Gwyn, Roejee, Pura. Now I am going to report the solutions of different challenges of global governance amidst the COVID-19 pandemic. The first solution is to improve the global governance of international public health. Health justice, then, is a fundamentally global concept and requires healthy equality within and across the countries and regions. To achieve health justice and to ensure the smooth and efficient response to similar public health events in the future, the aforementioned challenges facing the international community in dealing with the epidemic can be addressed from the perspective of global governance in the following aspects. To have a safer country, the government must be able to know when to listen. The government must improve their way of protecting his or her people through a proper communication in order for them to help us. Health is indeed very important to each and everyone, especially in this time of COVID-19. The second solution is to support the role of international organizations to achieve the objects. At the local level, the handling of COVID-19 and protocol of its spread are supposed to be the duties of the governments in the respective jurisdictions. At the international level, WHO is supposed to work closely with governments and to lead the world to fight against the outbreak based on IHR 2005. In order to fight against COVID-19, we, the citizens of our country, must learn to be responsible and must help the program of our country by supporting it through vaccination. Vaccination is our way of protecting ourselves and our loved ones, especially the fragile members of our family. The third solution is to enhance the coordination among international governance subjects to form synergy. Global governance refers to formal and informal sets of arrangements in global politics, insofar as it implies that the states alone cannot manage global affairs, but have to acknowledge the contributions of international governmental organizations. Non-governmental organizations and multinational corporations. Without the help of our government, we will not be able to face the hardest trials that come in our lives, which is the COVID-19. But without also our coordination and cooperation to our government, it will never be a successful one. Our government needs us more than we need for us to be safe and for them to function well. As for the government, they must willing to coordinate with an international governance for them to guide and for the sake of their people. The fourth solution is to promote compliance with HR 2005 to avoid conflict of law application. International law is the foundation of the international order, without which there be no order in the international community. Because of them, they've conducted research and experiment that becomes the answer to a certain problem. Because of them, they came up with an idea like vaccination to overcome or fight against the COVID-19. And in return, we must promote them to have a harmonious relationship and to show our gratitude to them. That's all. Thank you. Conclusion. International public health has long ago been a common problem troubling the international community, which call for the joint response from all mankind. COVID-19 and its subsequent huge impact impose new challenges to the global governance of international public health. Facing the severe public health crisis the world has suffered, and the prevention of mechanism established by IHR 2005 has not been achieved the expected results. Particularly, the recommendations issued by the WHO have not been universally adopted by member states, which which expose some urgent problems in the international public health governance system. COVID-19 and other PHEIC are the common enemy of all mankind, which requires states to have a strong sense of unity and uphold the vision of community with a shared future for mankind to jointly respond to the epidemic.
Good day, sir. I'm Cadet Neu Naval. I'm about to explain the importance of global governance. So, what is global governance? Global governance is essential but fragmented, complex, and a little understood. In this context, the key of question raised by the global challenges founding are how to reform the institution, how to develop the alternative institution, and how to use the new possibilities of technology to improve the governance. The goal of this global governance then is to negotiate solution to problems that affects more than one state or region. Global governance can be defined as the
Good day everyone, I am Cadet Santa Iglesia Rey Vincent and I will be talking about the difference of globalism and internationalism. So, to differentiate globalism and internationalism, first, we must tackle the meaning of these two. So first is globalization. Globalization means connecting the economies of the world for free trade and economic policies to integrate the world into the global village. Globalization is at the core in any of the policy planning by the International Monetary Fund or United Nations. It is the process of opening the economies of the nation for the other nations and to sync the rules and regulations with other nations. Multinational corporations are a tangible example of globalization, like McDonald's. It had 39,198 fast food restaurants in 119 countries and territories, according to its Securities and Exchange Commission filing at the end of 2020. It employed more than 2.2 billion people at that time, the filing said. Next, let's talk about internationalization. So, internationalization means to produce goods or deliver services that have the capability of entering into the international markets and have the standards that are globally accepted. The most significant impact of the growth of the global auto industry was the influence of globalization after the 1980s. Internationalization means to expand the business and enter into the market of different countries. It is the process in which a business, firm, or individual expands and becomes part of the countries. It may be for goods supply, customer base, or such other demand fulfillment. Products intended for use by speakers of multiple languages typically undergo an internalization process. For example, IKEA internationalizes the assembly instructions for its furniture by using only diagrams and illustrations, without including any text that would need to be translated. So what is the difference between internalization and globalization? Globalization is the end result, while internalization is one of the tasks, tools, or processes to achieve them. Globalization is more with the nations and their economies, while internalization is more related to the individual, firm, and corporations for doing up their businesses. Internalization may result in increases in the presence of the enterprise and pushes the world economy towards globalization. To put it simply, globalization is a process used by a company to bring its business to new locales, whereas internalization refers to the act of designing a product or service in a way that makes the expansion into international markets a simpler process. For example, in business, globalization refers to the emergence of an international network of economic and social systems, while internalization is a process of focusing on global resources and the goals of organizations on global business opportunities and threats. That's all.